Carter stood at the edge of the training hall and waited for her name to be called. The room was large and cold, filled with steel walls and bright lights that hummed softly above. Alien cadets from many worlds stood in neat lines, their armor shining and their weapons locked to their sides. Scanners floated through the air, checking every body for metal, energy, or hidden tools. Each cadet knew this was the first real test that decided their value. Did not look like a fighter to them. She was human, small and calm, with her hands relaxed and her face clear of fear. She wore the simple uniform given to all humans and nothing more. Jake watched her from the raised platform. He was one of the academy officers, trained to judge strength and potential without emotion. Beside him stood, who handled tactical reports and data. Both of them looked at the screen in front of them. It showed profile. Physical power rated low, weapon training rated average, threat level minimal. Jake narrowed his eyes, not impressed, read the notes softly and said that the human cadet had refused to carry any standard weapon. The system marked her as unarmed. A few aliens nearby made quiet sounds that sounded like laughter. Stepped forward when her name was called. The floor beneath her boots felt smooth and cold. Hundreds of eyes followed her, yet she did not turn her head or change her slow pace. Her breath stayed steady. She had trained her body and mind far more than the reports showed, but she knew this place did not believe in unseen effort. The academy trusted numbers more than instinct. She had learned that from the first day she arrived. An automated voice echoed through the hall and announced the start of her evaluation. A barrier formed around the testing zone, and a simulated hostile unit powered on at the far end. It was tall, shaped like a metal beast with jointed arms and glowing sensors. Its purpose was simple. It would attack and she would respond. The officers expected a quick failure. Jake folded his arms and fixed her eyes on the data flow, ready to record every second. Walked closer to the center of the zone. She looked around the space, not with fear but with calm focus. Her eyes moved across the floor, the walls, the objects placed there for standard use. Many cadets grabbed the smallest tools or ran for cover when pressure rose. Did not move toward any weapon rack. Instead, she studied the room like a quiet thinker watching a puzzle. The hostile unit began to step forward, each heavy foot shaking the floor in dull thuds. Around the hall, whispers grew. Some wondered why a human female would stand so still when danger approached. Others already judged her as lost. Ben Turner, another human cadet standing near the back, watched with growing tension. He knew trained hard and spoke little. He knew she trusted her own way more than academy rules. Still, even he could not guess what she planned to do. The hostile unit raised one arm and fired a low-energy pulse that burned the air. It struck near her feet, leaving a dark mark on the floor. Did not panic. She stepped sideways, her movement clean and simple. She kept her eyes on the unit, but her hands touched the surface of a nearby desk made of reinforced alloy. It was bolted to the floor, made for writing and data work, not for combat. No one paid attention to it before. Now her fingers rested on its edge with purpose. Jake leaned forward slightly, curious but doubtful, murmured that the object was not classed as a weapon. The scanners confirmed it. The desk had no energy core, no sharp edges, no firing ability. Yet's grip tightened, her shoulders shifting as tension pressed through her arms. The alien cadet stared in confusion. With a sudden push, she pulled. The metal joints of the desk groaned as bolts cracked under force. The sound echoed through the hall, sharp and real. In one steady motion, she tore the heavy structure free from the floor. Silence fell. Even the hostile unit paused for a brief second as if unsure of this new factor. The desk, now loose, rested in her hands like a shield far larger than her body. She did not smile or show pride. She simply adjusted her stance and waited. When the hostile unit charged, she moved. The desk swung to block the strike, metal against metal, sparks flying where they met. The impact shook the zone, yet she held firm. Her feet remained planted, her arms steady, her mind clear. With a sharp twist, she turned the desk and drove its edge into the unit's side, forcing it back. Across the hall, the observers froze in disbelief. Jake lowered his arms slowly, eyes wide. Data stream spiked as she watched the impossible reading of force and control. The system could not understand how her body generated such precise power. Ben whispered again, almost in awe, unable to break his stare. Moved again, using the weight of the desk as both wall and hammer. Each swing followed simple logic. Block, turn, push, strike. She used timing instead of rage, balance instead of blind strength. The unit attacked with programmed fury, yet every blow found resistance. Each step it took met a counter move she predicted before it even came. Her breathing stayed slow. Her mind remained sharp. She remembered long nights of quiet training, lifting scrap metal, testing her limits, learning how weight could become control. She did not fight to impress. She fought because she believed survival was more than following orders. It was about understanding space, timing, and will. The hostile unit tried a wide strike, ducked low and slid aside, the desk scraping the floor as she turned with it. She rose and slammed it down across the unit's legs. Joints buckled. Balance shifted. The creature of metal crashed to one side. Before it could recover, she stepped forward and pressed the desk against its core point, holding it down with focused strength. The automated voice halted the simulation. The lights softened again. The barrier dissolved. For a moment, no one spoke. The entire hall stood in a strange quiet, filled only with faint machine hum and slow breaths. Released the desk and stepped back. Her hands relaxed, though her eyes still watched the fallen unit as if it might rise again. Jake cleared his throat, but no words came. Looked from the data to, trying to find some logical code for what she had just seen. The alien cadets no longer laughed. Their expressions changed from mockery to uncertain respect. The air itself felt heavier with the truth they had witnessed. Simply waited for instruction. She did not bow. She did not raise her voice. She stood as she always did, calm and centered, as if the impossible act she had performed was only natural. And in that moment, the Academy began to understand that they had measured the human wrong, and that this quiet cadet held more than the system could ever explain. The silence after the test did not last long, but the feeling it left stayed heavy in the air. Stood where she was, her eyes calm, her hands loose by her sides. The desk lay on its side, scratched and bent, as if it too had learned something new. The officers did not tell her to move, so she waited. She had learned to wait in quiet patience, to let others decide when the moment was done. Jake finally signaled for order to return. The alien cadets shifted in their lines, still unsure how to react. Some stared at with caution, others with open interest. Ben caught her eye for a moment and gave a small nod, half proud and half confused. She returned nothing but a simple look that said she was fine. She always kept her emotions low, like water under ice. Stepped closer to the edge of the platform and asked a simple question. She wanted to know how she had moved an object so heavy on her own. Only said that the desk was not as heavy as it looked and that balance mattered more than strength. Her voice was soft, almost gentle but firm. The answer did not satisfy the data system, yet it made sense to those who listened. The Academy dismissed the group for the next phase of training, but did not leave the thoughts of the officers. Her name was already being sent to higher levels of review. The term unpredictable appeared more than once beside her profile. The word risk also appeared, followed by the word potential. Later that day, she walked the long, quiet path back to the human living sector. The corridor glowed with soft, pale light, and the sound of distant machines echoed through its clean walls. A few human cadets followed behind her, talking in low voices. Some praised her. Others warned that too much attention could lead to trouble. Listened without turning her head. She knew both were true. Inside her shared rest chamber, Ben spoke more clearly. He told her she surprised everyone, even him. He asked how long she had trained like that. She only replied that she trained since before she arrived, since before humanity ever asked for permission to survive. Ben laughed softly, unsure if she joked or not. Did not laugh back. The next day brought a new challenge. The Academy had adjusted her schedule without notice. Instead of standard drills, she was called to a controlled test zone used for complex behavior analysis. Jake and were already there when she arrived. This time, more observers filled the upper level. Their forms showed rank and authority. Their eyes held sharp interest. An automated voice told her to stand in the center again. Only this time, the floor around her shifted, opening and closing into uneven sections. Light panels flashed, and holographic barriers rose on all sides. The environment became unstable, changing shape every few seconds. It was designed to break focus and force confusion. Did not panic. She watched the space carefully. Her breathing stayed slow. The voice announced that she would face a phase threat simulation with no objects labeled as tools. The tone was almost challenging. Some wanted to see if her last success was chance or skill. The first threat appeared as three fast-moving figures, thin and sharp, made of hard light. They moved without pattern. They rushed her from different directions. She stepped back, then forward, her eyes reading their motion. There was no desk this time. No large object in sight, only floor panels, light poles, and narrow barriers. Yet she did not stand helpless. She bent low and grabbed a loose panel edge, twisting it with quick force. The material snapped free, forming a long, solid slab. She lifted it with both hands and turned it sideways. The first figure struck, and the slab blocked it clean. The second came from behind, but she turned with speed and pushed, sending it off balance. The third tried to strike low, but she raised her leg to avoid it and slid the slab down in response. Again, the watchers leaned forward in focus. She was not just reacting, she was thinking ahead. Her body moved like someone who knew danger as a familiar thing, not a stranger. Her strikes were not wild. They were clear, planned, and direct. The second phase began. The figures changed into a single massive form. Its limbs stretched and pulled with harsh speed. It slammed the floor and sent shock waves through the zone. Felt the pressure, but she did not freeze. She adjusted her grip on the slab and kept her distance, studying its rhythm. She waited for the right moment. When the form pulled back to strike, she rushed forward instead of away. She ran under its wide swing and drove the slab into its center, then pivoted to the side. The motion caught it off guard. It faltered and she struck again. Her movement stayed smooth, like calm water flowing around rock. Whispered that the simulation was showing stress signs. The system could not predict her next action quickly enough. Jake's jaw tightened, not in anger but in growing respect. This was not normal human behavior, and yet it felt deeply real. After the simulation ended, the room returned to silence. The floor settled. The light softened, lowered the slab and placed it on the ground as if returning a borrowed item. Once again she waited. This time the observers spoke in low tones among themselves. Words like adaptability, instinct, and anomaly moved through the air. Addressed her again. She asked if understood the risk of her own actions. Replied that nothing in that room felt more dangerous than the places she had already survived. No one asked her to explain further. They could sense the truth behind her simple words. In the days that followed, her training became more intense, more difficult zones, more changing environments, more eyes watching every action she took. Still, she kept her quiet strength and steady focus. She never raised her voice. She never boasted. She spoke only when needed and kept her mind clear. Some alien cadets began to avoid her. Others tried to speak with her, curious about humans and their ways. She answered their questions with simple honesty. She said humans learned from struggle. She said humans adapted or they failed. She did not speak of glory or conquest, only survival and purpose. Ben noticed the change around her. He saw fear and respect growing in equal measure. One evening, he asked if she ever felt tired of proving herself. She answered that she was not proving anything. She was only showing what already lived inside her. He nodded slowly, understanding just a little more each day. Inside the Academy Control Center, her file grew thick with reports. Commander Lisa Grant reviewed the data carefully, her eyes sharp with thought. She saw patterns no one else noticed. Did not fight to show power. She fought to control chaos. That, to Lisa, was more important than any weapon. Still, the Academy debated her place. Some officers believed she was too dangerous to trust. Others believed she was exactly what their broken systems needed. Through all this, remained unaware of the full weight of attention placed on her. She spent her nights stretching, breathing, and thinking in silence. She remembered Earth. Not the grand stories people spoke of, but the quiet places, the broken streets, the hard lessons. She remembered how she learned to lift heavy objects not for show, but because no one else would help. She remembered how she learned to think fast, not because it was impressive, but because slow meant defeat. Those memories shaped her more than any academy rule. They lived in her muscles, in her timing, in the way she carried herself. She did not call it skill. She called it normal. But here, in this strange place among stars and steel, normal had become something rare. On the final day of the week, she was summoned once more. This time, she entered a smaller chamber. Jake and stood there with two unfamiliar figures. Their ranks signaled authority far above standard officers. Their faces showed careful interest, not cold judgment. They told her she would be observed in a real environment test with limited support. It was not a threat, but not a comfort either. Accepted the order without question. Her eyes remained steady, her body relaxed yet ready. She had never needed praise to move forward. As she left the chamber, the doors sliding shut behind her, the ones who watched understood that they were no longer testing a simple cadet. They were studying a human who challenged every rule they believed in. And as walked down the long hall, calm and focused, the awareness of her silent strength continued to grow, unseen but unstoppable. Entered the new test area with slow, steady steps. The door sealed behind her with a low sound that echoed in the empty space. The room looked quiet at first, but she knew better than to trust silence. The floor was rough and uneven, scattered with broken structures and tall, narrow pillars. Soft light came from strips in the walls, leaving long, moving shadows that shifted as systems powered on. She stood still for a moment and listened. The air felt different here, heavier, as if it carried real danger instead of only simulation. Her breathing stayed light. Her fingers flexed gently at her sides. She focused her thoughts and cleared out everything that did not matter. The voice of the system spoke again, but this time it sounded more distant. It told her that no support would be given and no object would be marked for use. The space would change without warning. She would face unknown forces and had to move on instinct alone. Did not reply. She only shifted her stance and waited. The ground beneath her feet began to move. Panels slid apart and came together. Walls rose and closed. Narrow paths formed and disappeared. She walked forward slowly, watching how the space changed, reading its pattern like flowing water. From the corner of the room, a new thread appeared. It was not like the last ones. This one looked more natural, like a creature formed from dark metal and sharp edges. Its eyes glowed faintly. Its steps were quiet but heavy. It did not rush. It watched her. Felt its presence before it even moved. She stepped to one side, keeping distance, not showing fear. Her eyes scanned the area again. She saw a fallen beam half buried in the floor. She moved toward it with purpose. When the creature lunged, she ducked and rolled, reaching the beam and gripping it at one end. She lifted the beam, testing its weight, feeling its balance. It was heavy, but she had learned how to speak with weight, how to guide instead of fight against it. The creature attacked again, and she raised the beam just in time. The impact rang through her arms, but she held firm. She stepped forward and swung the beam across its shoulder. The force spun the creature slightly. It recovered fast and struck back. Its claws scraped the surface of the beam, sending sparks into the air. She shifted her grip and turned the beam sideways, using it as a barrier while moving closer. The fight flowed like a silent dance. Block, step, twist, strike. She did not waste motion. Every move carried meaning. The creature was fast, but she was calm. It was strong, but she was patient. She did not rush to end it. She waited for its weakness. Outside the chamber, the observers watched in deep focus. Jake stood with arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen, noted the changes in her movement. Grant, another observer with high calm presence, studied the flow rather than the data. She saw how avoided panic. She saw how her mind stayed clear under pressure. The creature charged one last time. Its claws came down in a wide strike, stepped inside the motion instead of away. She moved close and lifted the beam up, pressing it against the creature's chest. Using its own force, she pushed and turned, guiding it off balance. Its heavy body slammed into the far wall. Before it could move again, the system shut it down. Lowered the beam and set it aside. She did not celebrate. She stood quietly as the lights settled back to normal. The floor became still. Her heart beat steady. Sweat clung lightly to her neck, but her expression did not change. When the door opened, she stepped out without a word. The hall outside felt colder than before. Jake nodded slightly, watched her walk past with thoughtful eyes. She could not see a fighter who sought glory. She saw someone shaped by hardship and quiet discipline. The following hours brought more tasks, not always combat but survival trials. She walked through narrow tunnels with falling debris. She crossed unstable platforms over dark depths. She solved mechanical puzzles under time pressure. Each test tried to break focus, but her mind stayed sharp. Ben noticed how others spoke of her now. Her name carried weight. People said it in careful tones. Some admired her, some feared her. She remained the same. Quiet, simple, steady. She shared food with fellow cadets and spoke little of her trials. One evening she sat alone by a narrow viewing window that faced the stars. The light beyond it painted slow lines across the metal floor. Ben joined her in silence and sat beside her. He asked if she ever missed home. She looked out and said she missed the feeling of knowing the ground beneath her. Here, everything floated, even trust. Ben asked if she felt alone. She paused for a moment before answering. She said she felt aware. Aware was not lonely. Aware was being ready. Ben said nothing more. He understood that she carried more than words could explain. Inside the control rooms, debate grew stronger. Some officers pressed for stricter control over her. Others pushed for deeper study. Grant suggested observing her mental state instead of just her physical skill. She believed her strength came from deeper layers of experience. So the next stage of tests began. Emotional pressure, false signals, altered memories. The system tried to shake her by showing images of Earth, broken streets, silent rooms, faint faces. It played sounds of conflict and loss. It tried to weaken her focus by reviving past tension. Breathing slowed as she watched these images. Her eyes softened, but she did not fall apart. She did not reach out to them. She let them pass like clouds across a quiet sky. When asked how she felt, she said those memories shaped her, but they did not control her. The observers exchanged looks. This was rare. Many cadets broke under lesser mental strain. She did not. Her mind stayed clear, even when pain stood in front of her. Days passed. The intensity stayed high. Her muscles ached, her body tired, but her will did not fade. She rested only when ordered. She trained in silence when given free time. She respected the rules but did not depend on them. One afternoon she was called again. This time the chamber was open and wide, filled with layered obstacles and narrow corridors. Multiple simulated threats appeared at once. They moved fast and without rhythm. The test was designed to overwhelm. Stepped into motion immediately. She did not think in fear. Her body reacted through knowledge rooted deep in memory. She used walls, floor edges, broken panels, anything she could touch. Every object became a tool in her hands. She ducked between strikes, rolled over uneven ground, climbed a low barrier and slid down the other side. She grabbed a loose rod and used it to block a sudden attack. She twisted, stepped, and drove it forward. Her movements were not perfect, but they were real. Sweat ran down her face, her arms burned, still she moved, still she stood. When the final threat fell and the room returned to safety mode, she sank to one knee for a brief second. Not in defeat, but to breathe. Then she rose again, shoulders straight, eyes steady. The system declared the test complete. The silence that followed felt different. It carried respect, not surprise. The observers understood now that this was not luck. This was skill shaped by a life lived on sharp edges. Later, as she returned to her resting area, she passed a group of alien cadets who stepped aside without a word. Not from fear, but from quiet recognition. She nodded once and continued walking. Ben waited for her at the door. He handed her a small water pack. She accepted it and drank slowly. He said the academy would never look at humans the same way again. She replied that humans never asked them to. That night, as she lay on her narrow rest bed, she closed her eyes and let her body relax. Her thoughts moved slowly through the events of the day. She did not think of glory. She did not dream of power. She only knew one thing: she would survive. She always had. Far above, in silent orbital layers, reports of her progress traveled through command levels. Words like asset, evolution, and warning passed through digital channels. But none of those words could fully describe the quiet human who turned simple objects into unseen strength. And as the academy prepared its next phase, more advanced and more dangerous, one truth had already settled deep in their minds. Carter was not just passing their tests. She was changing the way they understood war, survival, and the unknown strength of a single determined human. The final phase began without warning, woke early to a low tone echoing through the corridor. The lights shifted from soft white to a pale blue, a sign of high-level activity. She dressed in silence and walked out into the hall. Other cadets stepped aside as she passed. Their faces showed quiet respect mixed with uncertain fear. She was guided to a large open zone near the edge of the academy. The walls here were thicker, and the ceiling curved high above. Observation decks surrounded the area, filled with silent figures watching her every move. This was no longer a simple test. This was a final measure. Jake and stood near the entrance. Their expressions were serious, told her this would be a real stress environment, no clear limits, no preset pattern. The threat would adapt as she did. Nodded once. She did not ask questions. She only stepped forward when the gate opened. The ground shifted under her boots as she entered. The air felt cold and thin. A soft mist rolled across the floor, hiding parts of the space. Dim lights flickered far above, casting long shadows that moved like slow waves. Somewhere in the distance, metal scraped against metal. Slowed her pace and listened. The sound grew closer. A heavy form moved through the fog, larger than any she had faced before. Its outline appeared slowly. Thick armored limbs, layered plating, glowing lines across its surface. This was not simple simulation. This was a full adaptive combat unit designed for war zones. It roared, a deep sound that vibrated through her chest. Then it rushed forward with rushing speed that its size, moved at once. She darted to the side and sprinted toward a broken structure to her right. The creature slammed into the ground where she stood, cracking the surface. She did not stop. She climbed the low structure and picked up a long metal pipe resting against it. Her hands wrapped around it with firm control. When the creature turned and charged again, she jumped down and rolled to avoid its heavy swing. She rose fast and struck at its side. The pipe bent slightly but held. Sparks flew as metal hit metal. The creature swung back, catching her shoulder. Pain flared through her arm, but she did not cry out. She tightened her jaw and stepped away to regain balance. Breathing heavier now, she read its movement. It attacked in wide, powerful arcs, strong but slow between strikes. She knew she could not overpower it. She had to guide it, tire it, control space and time. She moved in circles, keeping distance, drawing it toward a narrow path between two large pillars. The ground there dipped slightly. The creature followed without thought. When it reached the tight gap, it slowed just enough. That was her moment. She rushed forward and slid low, striking its back leg joint with the pipe. The impact made it stumble. It recovered but lost rhythm. She struck again, this time at the same point, focusing not on power but on pressure. Outside the zone, the observers leaned forward. No one spoke. The only sound was the combat echo through the chamber. The creature swung blind in rage. The pipe snapped in half under its force. Let the broken half drop and reached for another object on the floor. Her hand found a heavy shield plate torn from the unit itself. Without pause, she lifted it and pressed forward. Using the shield, she blocked a direct strike and slid aside. The shield scraped against the floor as she turned it into a moving wall. She slammed its edge into the creature's knee and then into its side. The metal dented under repeated pressure. Her muscles burned. Her breath came sharp and fast. A small cut above her eye bled warm along her cheek. Still, her eyes stayed clear. She did not think of stopping. She did not think of defeat. The creature lunged again. This time it caught her leg. She fell hard to the ground, pain flashing through her body. Dust filled her lungs. For a brief second, the world blurred. The unit raised its arm to strike down, but did not freeze. She twisted her body and rolled sideways, just missing the crushing blow. As she rolled, her hand closed around a fallen support rod. She used it to push herself up, breath shaking but strong. She stepped in close, too close for the unit's wide-range weapons. The rod slammed into its core area again and again. She focused on that one point, quick focus strikes. The unit staggered, its systems flickered. With one final push, she drove the rod deep and held it there until the unit powered down. The glow faded. The heavy form froze and fell forward with a metallic crash. Step back and let the rod fall. Her shoulders rose and fell as she breathed. Her body trembled slightly from strain, but she stood upright. The fog cleared slowly. The lights brightened. Silence returned, thick and full. Then the gate opened. Jake and walked forward into the zone. Behind them, more figures followed. Command-level observers, faces filled with reflection. Some nodded. Some simply watched her as if seeing something new for the first time. Spoke softly and told her the test was complete, only nodded. She did not smile. Her eyes turned toward the fallen unit and then away. To her, the fight was over. She was escorted to the medical bay for light treatment. Bandages were placed on her arm and leg. The cut was cleaned. She did not complain. The pain was real but familiar. It did not break her. Later, as she rested on a narrow bench, Ben arrived. His face showed relief and pride. He told her the entire academy watched the final test. He said no one expected her to stand that long. She answered that standing was easier than giving up. Outside the room, voices moved through the clean halls. Plans were being made, training protocols adjusted, reports rewritten. Did not hear most of it, and she did not care. She sipped water and closed her eyes for a moment. That evening she was called once more, not for combat but for recognition. A small assembly had formed. Commanders stood in calm rows. Jake and were there too. They spoke of her adaptability, her control, her focus. They said she represented a new understanding of strength. Listened without showing pride. When asked if she wished to say anything, she simply said that she did what she always did on Earth: survive, use what was around her, stay aware. Silence followed her words, but it was not empty. It was thoughtful. From that day, the academy changed. Training evolved. Cadets were taught not only to rely on tools, but to read space and use creativity. Simulations added unknown objects. Flexibility became more valued than raw power, all because one human showed them another way. Returned to her routine, but the atmosphere around her shifted. She was no longer seen as unarmed. She was seen as prepared. Some spoke to her with respect. Some kept quiet, unsure. She stayed the same. Calm, quiet, moving with purpose. At night, she often returned to the window that faced the stars. The black space beyond shimmered with distant light. Ben sometimes joined her, but often she sat alone. She did not miss fame. She did not seek attention. She watched the silent sky and thought of the ground she once walked on. She understood now that her path was not just for herself. Her strength had become a message, even if she never meant it to be. A message that humans were not weak because they lacked claws or armored skin. They were strong because they learned to adapt. Far beyond the academy, word of her spread through fleets and command networks. Her story was shared quietly among officers and strategists. Some studied her method. Others tried to copy it, but none could fully become what she was. Because was not built in a lab or trained in perfect order. She was shaped by real life, real struggle, and real choice. And as the days moved forward, and the Academy turned its eyes toward new stars and new threats, one truth stayed firm within its walls. The quiet human girl who once stood unarmed had shown them that true power was not held in weapons alone, but in the mind that knew how to turn anything into strength.